Hi, this is Greg Beckett, motivational hypnotist. New episode of Time to Get Unstuck here on the Hypno 24/7 live network. I have a special guest, someone that I've known for quite a while, and I'm very excited for you to meet Jessica Graham. I'll go into all of her stuff, her wonderful stuff in just a moment. But as you know, we need to talk about our sponsor, who I'm very grateful for, and it's Hypno Thoughts Platinum. It's going to be a 3-day conference, unlike Hypno Thoughts Live, which is in Las Vegas and very broad, 1,000 people, hundreds of presenters. This is just going to be 6 presenters in San Diego, February 28th and 29th and March 1st of 2020. 6 wonderful presenters. They each have a half day each to present. You can go to htplatinum.net to find the presenters. I could tell them to you here, but I want you to go look and know it's about already having a practice and going from good to better. This is not for the complete beginner. This is for somebody that already knows what they're doing and they just want to elevate themselves. So I'd say Jessica pipe in on this, but she has no clue. She's not a hypnotist. So thank you so much, Hypno Thoughts Platinum. And this episode, Time to Get Unstuck, as you know, is really about moving forward, because we can't get unstuck. We have to move forward. And we're using words. We always use a word that's been important in my journey or the guest journey or what comes up often with clients to start the discussion. So again, Jessica Graham, who is an actor, author, filmmaker, meditation leader, and love, sex, and spiritual guide. So that's a lot. Thank you, Jessica, for being here. This is really special for me because we've known each other for quite a long time. And I know that Jessica is someone who understands change because she's been through a lot of it, like a lot of us. She's been through a lot of change and has done it in a conscious way. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, for the most part, a conscious way. I'm definitely familiar with change. I want to thank you so much for inviting me to come and chat with you today. It means a lot to me too. You were there at really the very beginning of my journey. Now, I would say I've probably been on this journey, for forever. But when I really in earnest started leaning into change in a conscious way, getting conscious about wanting to make changes and wanting to get an acceptance about changes, you were there. And you were a huge part of really the beginning of a complete paradigm shift for me, and then a continuing paradigm shift. And so thank you. Thank you for being such an important part of my life and my journey. And thanks for continuing to be in my life.
I appreciate that. It's very touching because as a hypnotist, hypnotherapist, motivational hypnotist, or change worker, whatever we all are, what we do, our people that we work with go off and do wonderful things, and we never really sometimes ever know what's happened or what's going on. And that leads us to the word that I would have never really thought of, even though I practice it with my clients and things like that. And most of us that Jessica came up with is safety. And so since we're a nice, good, safe place to talk about safety, what would you like to start off with?
So the interesting thing for me about the word safety is that it very much drops me right into a space of non-duality, because in one way, I don't think there's such thing as safety in the human sense, right? We're all trying to get safe. We're all trying to find some solid ground to stand on, something to dig our nails into, something to tell us, I'm here and I exist and I'm actually huge, when in reality, we're these little teeny tiny specks on a teeny tiny speck that's in the midst of, who knows how much space, mystery, vast, we don't know. And so the idea of safety or solid ground is kind of ridiculous. We have no idea what's going to happen in any given instant, let alone next year. And so this idea that we can be safe is that's cute. It's a cute human thing, but it's, completely impossible. And as humans, especially humans that are working on consciously changing, it's so important to feel safe and to create a sense of safety. I think on the spiritual path, it's like this holding of total lack of human safety and this cultivation of such a strong sense of being contained and held in a kind of safety. And so I just find it to be such an interesting word for that reason.
I think I mentioned before, not with you, but in another episode and stuff, that we are trying to find that, and we could use safety as the word, but I'm saying consistency, right? Mm-hmm. Consistency, which for a lot of people, consistency is safety in a universe that really is about us in constant change, mm-hmm. right? We're trying to find that holding place that we feel good, yet you and I are now different from just this 1 or 2 minutes of what we've talked about, you know? So there's no consistency of or holding place of non-movement. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, I'm going to throw the question back at you, since you brought safety to me, is what would you think is a way, I mean, I have my thoughts, but what is a way of finding that safety, or what does that mean really? Because you're saying that it really is silly in a universal sense, but yet in a humanistic sense, it's something that we crave and need. Mm-hmm. So where do they find that?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, when I first started on my spiritual path, you were someone who was creating a sense of safety. But for the most part, I was really balls to the walls. I was like, I'm going to, am I allowed to say that?
You can say whatever you want here.
I was like, I'm going to go into the deepest, darkest, most challenging, terrifying stuff. And I'm going to sit there for like 4 hours a day and not move and just like take myself through this like horror show of my history. And the thing for me is, because I had a lot of trauma in my past, and I also did a lot of drugs in my past, which can also add to this, I ended up having a very flashy sort of spiritual experience in the beginning. Lots of weird visions and hallucinations, and some really terrifying, some really beautiful. But I just like drilled in. And it was very fruitful in certain ways, but in other ways, it was re-traumatizing, and it did not make me feel safe. And so I was introduced to something called somatic experiencing at about 9 years ago. And it really revolutionized the way that I worked within my own psycho-spiritual growth. And that was to actually cultivate and find safety in the body. And so to find a spot that feels safe, that feels maybe even neutral, if the whole body's like, the fight, flight, freeze is going crazy.
Yeah.
Finding one spot where you can just focus your attention. So that became a real foundation of the way that I worked. And it's a huge part of how I work with others. I just taught this sexual well-being retreat at Esalen, and I spent the whole first day and a half of 5 days, like teaching resource over and over and over again in different ways. When I work with a client, even an intro call, when we're just deciding if we want to work together, the first thing I do is help them find resource so that we can create a safe container for the work that we're going to do. And so that's a first really powerful step, is to just find a place in your body that doesn't feel afraid, that doesn't feel freaked out, and then train your mind to be able to go there. And that doesn't mean that you're shutting off any of the other stuff. You're not pushing it down. You're not repressing it. You're not making it wrong, right? Because the fear and the anxiety and all of those aspects of self are there for a reason. They were built in at a very young age. They were built in to help you survive.
Right.
And so now, you don't want to be like, that's wrong. That's bad. Get out of here, PTSD. You suck. And you want to be like, oh, sweetheart. Oh, of course you're freaked out. Like, wow. And like, let me just be with you while I also soothe myself, while I also find this sense of safety within myself, while I do the thing that my parents couldn't do. Right. They couldn't soothe themselves and be with me.
Yeah. And that, two things. One is, that's like reparenting ourselves, is the way I look at it. A lot of work that we do, no matter what we choose, right? And the other thing is for those that, because this is hypnotists and possibly non-hypnotists, people just finding their way. What do you mean by resource, finding resource?
So in this sense, I'm borrowing it directly from Peter Levine's somatic experiencing, which is just finding something in the body or external. It could be external as well, but something that doesn't feel activated. Something like, for example, oftentimes when people are starting, they might just focus on their hands or their feet, because usually there's not a whole lot of emotion happening in the hands or the feet. Usually when you're really triggered, it's not centered in the hands or the feet. And so that can be a good spot. Right.
Getting out of either of these two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that can help. But then, you can find resource anywhere in the body. I mean, so I've dealt with a lot of different health issues, and I've had some periods where, pain levels were so high that I was going unconscious. And in order to deal with that and not suffer to an extent that, was overwhelming and outrageous, I would just find one teeny spot where the pain wasn't. And I would just focus my attention in on that. And that's really hard to do if you've never practiced this. But if you sit down every day and you take a little time to practice focusing on something that feels good, like if you can focus on something that actually feels pleasurable in your body each day, you're going to strengthen that neural pathway that moves you towards pleasure rather than moving you towards discomfort. And then if you find yourself in the ER in excruciating pain, you'll have that skill.
That's much like the way people that work with pain, hypnosis and pain, or surgery, or dental, or even when clients come and we help them find a safe place, whether it's created or real, that they can go to in their mind or in their soul or whatever you want to call, anybody wants to call anything, because everybody has a different word for everything. That place where they can create and have practice to go there. And you're saying in the same way, it could be a finger, it could be something within or out.
Yeah, it can absolutely be a visualization that you create. It could be a sound, it could be a sight. It can really be anything that's at least neutral, if not pleasurable. Yeah.
So when we talk about safety, how has that for you been the big foundation? I know that you talked about being in pain and being able to go to that, but in other ways, is there something that you can elaborate on how that's been a major foundation for all of it, your change?
Yeah. So, we do this in a spiral is the way that I look at it, right? Like you come back around to the same stuff again and again. You just kind of greet it as the person you are in that moment. And so I've had many periods where I've recognized, wow, I have no idea what it is to be safe. And each time it seems profound. Each time I'm like, wow, I thought I knew what safety was, but I had no idea what it meant to be safe. And so last year, I was just kind of going through a personal crisis, with my health and with the side effects of all the medications I was on, and, the challenges that come up in relationship when you're chronically ill, and also, running several businesses, like, all the things that I do, and needing to like slow things down and needing to also still get money in the bank and not like, completely, cut off all of my business. And so it was a very challenging time. And I had these ideas about what I needed in order to be okay. Like I need more money, or I need more time, or like whatever. I need all of this outside stuff. And then I realized all of that boils down to, I need to feel safe. And you use the word consistency, which I think is huge. And for a kid like me, there was no consistency.
Right.
I was, raised by beautiful, terrible wolves. And by the time I was 14, I was basically on my own, and so there was no consistency. At 14, I didn't know how to consistently, take care of myself.
Show up for yourself,
Right. And so
who wants to see this? I gotta go.
Right, exactly. And so even now, like I really struggle with consistency. It's something that like, and some of that's okay. Like that means that I'm really great at spontaneity. It means that I'm really great at, at really being in the moment of what's happening. But because consistency leads to a sense of safety, you know, it's something that I am working on cultivating and continue to do so. But at this time, you know, last year, I realized like a lot of what I thought I needed in order to be okay, in order to get better, in order to function and survive, and hopefully thrive, was to feel safe. And so I started doing mind body visualizations around creating a sense of safety in the mind and then flooding it into the body, filling every cell of my body with a sense of safety while I continued to use visuals and words to cultivate that sense of safety. And I would spend like 40 minutes a day just hanging out in like a stew of safety that I created, just using my mind and my body, and then connecting to something much bigger than my mind and my body. And that proved to be a very, very powerful practice. And it also just showed me like, oh, poor kid, like you don't have a sense of what safety is. Like you have to create it from scratch. And that's beautiful and fantastic and what an adventure. And it's sort of sad, you know? And so to grieve that and to be with the self that's like, I don't even know what that means. And what I found is going through that process, gosh, did it create humility? Gosh, did it create a deeper sense of compassion, an ability to witness other people's suffering on a whole nother level, because I was willing to go into that territory of safety and lack of safety. And it takes all the tools, you know, it takes every, like I look through my life and it's like the things I learned with you, the things I learned with this meditation teacher, the things I learned with this therapist, from this book, all of it creates this tapestry, which in the moment when you're like free falling and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get through this layer, and then it's there and it's just like, okay, got you.
There was a couple things that have popped up. One is you were talking about going through a spiral and meeting that challenge where you are today, like each time it comes up. And I always talk to clients, and I do this for myself too, is issues or challenges or whatever we want to call them don't go away. We just learn how to handle them and not have that fear because we've done it before, and we get stronger in our sense of self to be able to say, oh, that's what it is, instead of in the beginning we didn't even know what that feeling was, or that fear, or what people, you know, some people have PTSD or this, that. It's really just emotions and things that are coming at all of us, and then we go, oh, wait, I know you, I recognize you, can I deal with you now or not? Or as you've grown, it's like, okay, like riding a bicycle, I've ridden down this street on this bike before, let's try it on a unicycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And the other thing you were talking about was when you have well, I'm going to go to what I was thinking about what you said. It's really all yin and yang. It's light, dark, opposites, whatever anybody wants to call it, and how you can't have one without the other.
Right.
There's no way. And trying to find the beauty in the dark and the light, or the positive, negative, however, again, people want to describe it for themselves, is having an appreciation for both. And then, you know, I haven't been a big meditator. I know that you've really done well with that for yourself and stuff, and I'm having to learn. And everybody meditates different. Yesterday I was repotting orchids and being able to get out of everything and doing it that way, and getting better about learning how to sit. But with that, it's like there's times when I take the time to think or not think, and yin and yang, right? And see how you can't have either without both. And once we learn to appreciate like what we've been through to then be where we are, and once we learn that at least like ourselves, whatever that means a bit, that we have to appreciate everything that's happened. Right? So,
I mean, you're talking the language of self-love, which is a huge part of feeling safe as a human, is to be able to love not just the self that is, you know, doing a great job with your career and, you know, killing it with the relationship and having the best sex of your life, but also for the part of self that's like, you know, getting fired and getting dumped and, totally shut down during sex and afraid. Like, we got to love all these parts of self, right? Whenever they
sometimes all at one time.
sometimes all at one time. Yes. And for me, like, that's an absolute path to a kind of human sense of safety, is like, no matter what arises, it is deserving of love. No matter what arises, it's unconditionally accepted. And it's a radical way to live, but ultimately it's not only about our own personal journey when we start living that way, it's about how we come into the world as well. If we can greet the politician who, makes our blood boil with a sense of, hello, human, I see you, I love you, I recognize you suffer as well, that changes the whole thing.
I had an experience not too long ago that someone that I would be in contact with, I just would snap inside. Couldn't stand the angry, because and I didn't know why. I couldn't even look at them. I wouldn't speak to them, even though we had to be. It was not. You could see in my face. I'm like, I could feel that if I wanted to. And I had to look at it. What is that about me? I always go back to, what does that have to do with me? What's my issue? Because it's not them. They're not doing anything but being themselves. And I realized they are my potential of who I could be in the opposite of what I see myself. Meaning, I see myself as trying to be or working to be a good person and helpful and stuff. And I saw that because of what my thought of my perception of who they were, which I still believe isn't too far off, but it no longer triggers me because I could see that was my dark side being shown to me through them, of my potential of being not kind or not understanding or not fair, or all the nots that I feel like I am was being shown in them. And now I see them, hi, because I realize it's me. It's not them. Is that?
Oh yeah. I mean,
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't scare me to be around them. It doesn't trigger, it doesn't do all those things because I can see that it's me.
Yeah. Just like everything and everyone is, right?
Like, yeah, exactly.
and that is an ultimate kind of safety, to no longer be able to believe in separation. Right. Like, there's one side of the coin, which is like, you're on your own in this vast wilderness of mystery. And the flip side of that coin is, and you're 100% connected and one with everything and all of it. So you're never alone. And again, that's another way to kind of look at that vast sense of safety, or lack of safety, as actually safe.
Yeah. And it's that whole, goes back to dark, light, yin, yang, whatever way. And when you can, and it dawned on me finally when people are talking about balance. It's not about balance, about feeling calm or that. It's about having that trust and that confidence that whatever comes, you can tilt it back and bring it, just like a scale. And that's the challenge.
Yeah, because we're going to continue to be human. It doesn't matter how much. Yeah, it doesn't matter how much you meditate. It doesn't matter how much hypnosis you do. It doesn't matter how much therapy you do. It doesn't matter how much ayahuasca you do. I don't care. You're going to keep being human. Unless you take yourself to a cave and it's just you in the cave, you're going to keep having responses, reactions, experiences based on the stimuli that's coming in.
But if you go to the cave, you're no longer in humanity.
Well, exactly.
So so
you come out of that cave and you're gonna be faced with humanity again, and you're gonna find out how enlightened you actually are. Yeah, so we're gonna keep being human no matter what we do. And yeah, I absolutely agree. It's about, what is our relationship to these thoughts? What is our relationship to these emotions? What is our relationship to the non-negotiable tragedy, death, change of life? Which is always going to be there. So the alarm went off, but I didn't want to stop us because we were having no, it just went off. It just went off just a little bit ago. But we had a nice little ending. Is there anything else that you want to leave people with on that thought, or do you feel like we've covered what we wanted to talk about today, or is there any final? I think you and I could do this for like 50 hours. So well, maybe we'll do it again if you're willing. I'm willing, and the time frames line up. I'd be more than happy to have more conversation with you. I would love that. Yeah, I would love that. And I know people are going to find you interesting. Where
would they find you?
So you can find me on my website, which is yourwildawakening.com. I also have a YouTube channel with lots of guided meditations and talks, and then Instagram where I post different writings. I also have a book out called Good Sex, Getting Off Without Checking Out. And I work with individuals and couples in that realm around sexuality, spirituality. I do a sort of like kind of combo of sort of life coaching, spiritual teaching, sexual education. And so you can find more about that on my website as well.
Cool. And they'll have all that information for anybody that's interested, probably down below or something, whatever they do with this magic of internet and stuff. You can find me on YouTube as well. And also, if you want to see past episodes are there, and the Hypno 24/7 Live Network here on Facebook, and Greg at Hypnosis LA. And closing off, I want to say, Jessica, thanks so much. And you'll know what I mean when I say for being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you for helping me be able to.
Just, so everybody for watching, appreciate your time and see you next episode.